I don't mean to reproach you by saying this. I know that scares you. All of the big occasions you might have missed. No, I accept you. And I don't even need to know your reasons. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. I think you sometimes forget I would know you best. I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but I think your inside is your best side. Was that a teardrop in your eye? I never thought I'd see you cry. Just know whatever hurts.
That was Sophie Zion with It's Okay to Cry. Sophie was an experimental pop musician in the PC music genre who passed away on Saturday. Welcome to the Rise Weekly Review for January 25th through February 1st, 2021. On Friday, a woman was shot in South Chicago. The 29-year-old woman was sitting in a parked car on 8100 block of South Bennett around 5:15 p.m. when someone drove by and began firing shots. The woman was struck in the leg. She was taken to the University of Chicago Medical Center and last reported in good condition. Anyone with information on Chicago crimes can leave a tip at cpdtip.com. On Saturday, a man was wounded from a shooting in South Chicago. The 29-year-old man was a passenger in a car traveling on the 8500 block of South Chicago Avenue around 2:20 a.m. when someone in another vehicle drove near and began opening fire. The man was struck in the hip. He was taken to Trinity Hospital where he was last reported in fair condition. On Thursday, a shooting in South Shore left a 20-year-old man wounded. The man was in a parked car near the 6900 block of South Crandon around 2:10 p.m. when two other vehicles pulled up. Two people got out of one of the vehicles. Both pulled out guns and began firing shots at the man. The man was hit in the left hip. He was taken to the University of Chicago Medical Center and last reported in stable condition. According to reports, the Postal Service mail carrier was nearby when the shooting occurred, but was not injured or believed to be a target. On Friday, a police chase in Indiana of multiple stolen cars led to the arrest of 3 Illinois men in northwest Indiana. Indiana police from multiple departments teamed up to chase the vehicles traveling as fast as 130 miles per hour on I-65 and US 30. Indiana State Police and Jasper County Sheriffs chasing the vehicles were joined by a patrolling Lake County officer on I-65. Near US 30, a man got out of a SUV and attempted to escape on foot. Another man drove on to Hobart around the 7300 block of Colorado Street and jumped out the vehicle. Officers were able to catch and arrest 3 of the men. The man who fled to Hobart was found carrying a handgun and tools in a backpack. On Sunday, around 11:15 a.m., a man was killed in a crash in Hammond. The crash occurred on I-80-94 near Calumet Avenue. The vehicle was heading eastbound. The man was pronounced dead on the scene. As of the time of this reporting, no further information has been released. In national news, an army of Redditors causes shakeup in Wall Street. The group known as r/Wall Street Bets has been around for years, but gained international attention during the week when it was reported the group successfully organized to send GameStop and AMC stocks soaring and take advantage of tricks used by Wall Street short sellers. In short selling, an investor borrows a stock, sells the stock at the current rate, and then, when the stock drops, buys it back to sell back to the lender. Hedge funds and traders essentially do this to earn profit on falling stocks. However, the Redditors began purchasing the stock and upping its value. This forced the hedge funds and traders to purchase the stock back at higher costs, adding to the value and causing a chain effect as other investors began buying the stock to get in on the profit. The value of the stock went from a low of $3 in April to a high of over $347 and remains high. The group continues to push other stocks, including AMC, and apparently is pushing silver as well. Also in national news, on Wednesday, reports came out that the spokesman of the far-right extremist group, the Proud Boys, was an FBI informant. A Florida man of Cuban descent, Enrique Tarrio, has been the spokesman for the group for a number of years. According to federal prosecutors, Tarrio was also working with the federal government following an arrest in 2012 for a fraud case related to relabeling and selling stolen diabetes test kits. He reportedly aided the FBI in prosecuting more than a dozen people in various drug, gambling, and human smuggling cases. Tarrio has denied the reports. In other national news, video released on Friday provided a glimpse into the conditions migrants face in the ICE detention while the number of detainee COVID deaths continues to rise.
Iban los enfermeros y nos decían, no tienen nada, es una simple gripa, no pasa nada. Eso es en realidad lo que pasa en la forma corrección docente.
La atención médica solo te recomiendan agua. Para todo, toma agua, agua.
Fueron 4 meses trancados en cuarentena, sin poder salir, sin poder casi ejercitarme, nada. No hay doctores, hay muy pocos servicios médicos. Yo fui contagiado del COVID-19 en esa instalación. Hay, en ese tiempo que estuve ahí, hubo muchas personas. Nos plantamos para que nos atendieran. Hubo compañeros que colapsaron adentro del tanque, personas que se convulsionaban. Primeramente pusieron en cuarentena al tanque completo.
Ese tanque es de 64 personas, de una litera arriba y una abajo.
Las duchas, no hay ninguna posibilidad de tener el distanciamiento social en ese lugar.
Pero otra cosa que afectaba mucho era de que cada quien ya sabía de que estaba allí la enfermedad y no había las medidas higiénicas. Lo que podíamos hacer era meternos al cuarto y no salir.
Entonces se lo llevaban para la celda, para el mismo hoyo, donde ponen a los castigados, pero que la gente empezó a coger miedo con aislarse porque el trato era inhumano.
Pasamos tiempo que ya estaba la enfermedad allí y no nos dieron el tapabocas. Hasta creo que una semana después llegaron exigiendo de que teníamos que firmar un documento como que el CORE-CIDE evadía de cualquier responsabilidad de que nos pasara a nosotros allí.
Yo estuve exactamente 22 meses en Illinois. Están laqueadas, solamente las dejan salir 10 minutos. En esos 10 minutos solamente o decides ir a hacer algo de comer al microwave, bañarte o hacer una llamada. Te lo digo porque mi compañera, ella está detenida y está contagiada de COVID y es diabética y no han hecho nada con ella.
Reports during the week continue to provide stories of the surge in COVID cases in ICE facilities, despite months of pleas from detainees seeking relief. Around 21 immigrants have died from COVID. Detainees have been organizing hunger strikes and what are described as squalid, isolated, and cramped conditions in the camps. Among them was a 20-year-old asylum seeker named Juan Jose Erazo Herrera from El Salvador. According to Herrera, despite their efforts, authorities failed to listen, and many, including Herrera, have now become infected with COVID. The Guardian released a video that gave voice to some of these immigrants currently in detention. On Wednesday, the Chicago City Council voted to eliminate exceptions to Chicago's Welcoming City Ordinance. The exceptions allowed Chicago police to cooperate with ICE. By a vote of 41 to 8, the City Council removed the exceptions. The exceptions allow police to work with ICE in cases where individuals were included in the city's gang database, have federal prosecutions, or are the subject of a criminal warrant. The exceptions raise concerns due to their broad reach and the difficulty in educating people on their rights and police and proper enforcement. The Chicago gang database, for instance, is known to be overly broad, inaccurate, racially biased, and ultimately ineffective. Many people have been listed in the gang database with no known gang ties or affiliations, including relatives or associates with no criminal histories. On Friday, the last day for public comments into the Reserve Management Group's expansion and shredder development brought additional updates on federal investigations. The Sun-Times reported that in October, U.S. Housing and Urban Development asked Justice Department prosecutors to look into Chicago's zoning practices as they felt Chicago had violated federal law. Earlier in the week, the U.S. EPA announced that it was investigating the state's decision to grant RMG's permit in June. In June, the Illinois EPA granted RMG its final state permit despite receiving several violations, including for an explosion that occurred on the site following RMG's purchase. The city is currently named in both a federal civil rights case and a federal lawsuit. The civil rights complaint was launched by local and national environmental groups, including the National Resource Defense Council. The federal lawsuit was launched by local pastors and residents, including former 10th Ward Aldermanic candidate Pastor Richard Martinez. In other local news, talks between the Chicago Public Schools, Mayor Lightfoot, and the Chicago's teacher union fell apart over the week. Negotiations have been ongoing over the mayor's plan to reopen Chicago public schools during the COVID pandemic. CTU has been negotiating over requirements for in-school teaching, vaccination plans, and metrics for when schools might close again. CPS and the mayor have been pushing in-person learning, citing safety measures taken and using reopenings in private and Catholic schools in their arguments. Schools are expected to reopen on Tuesday, and the mayor and CPS have said teachers not attending can expect disciplinary actions. CTU has threatened additional action, including a possible strike if CPS and the mayor follow through. And finally, a reminder to be safe during the recent snowstorms. Following a study, Harvard Health has warned people of the link between shoveling snow and hospitalizations for heart conditions. According to the study, the deeper the snow and longer its duration, the more men are admitted for and die from heart attacks. Heart attacks increase not only for people with pre-existing heart conditions, but even among those with no risk factors. Based on this, they offer this advice. Warm up your muscles before starting. Shovel many light loads instead of fewer heavy ones. Take frequent breaks. Drink plenty of water. Don't feel that you need to clear every speck of snow from your property. Head indoors right away if your chest starts hurting, you feel lightheaded or short of breath, your heart starts racing, or some other physical change makes you nervous. If you think you are having a heart attack, call 911 or your local emergency number immediately. And that ends our weekly review for January 25th through February 1st, 2021. Thank you for joining us for this weekend review. Peace.
Even after all this time, just know you've got nothing to hide. It's okay to cry, it's okay to cry. It's okay to cry, it's okay to cry. It's okay to cry, it's okay to cry. I remember one time you were lost. I came to find you, and I knocked on your front door. That was you and never seen before. And I saw the magazine you were reading.